So I was going to talk about Manodharma and accompaniment. So I think this is a good time to bring that. So let's have Arun and Guru play for a different composition. And maybe they can also talk about how they approach it. Because how did they approach playing a Pallavi for the Pallavi, an Anupallavi? And how it can be done differently? Okay, I'll sing two parts. Srinatati Guru Gojayati. It has a very clear form, this composition, so it's a good thing to take. And then another composition which is more flowy, which you'll also see. And just see how they approach the idea of the composition. When a composition begins, there's this idea of Amittardu. Okay? So the idea of the Amittardu is to first frame the Laya framework and to frame the compositional framework itself. First, a composition has to be started. It has to be basically the foundation of its whole form has to be like fixed in. So that's what they first do. And then they'll start coming inside according to the melodic variations, which means they're responding to every part of what is happening and they're constantly layering. They are not providing me a base for my layering, but they are layering. They have to layer. I'll sing two compositions. Shri Natadi Guru Guha Jayati Jayati Shri Natadi Guru Guha Jayati Jayati Shri Natadi Guru Guha Jayati Jayati Shri Chidanandanato Santatam Hridini Bhajashi Natadi Guru Guha Jayati Jayati Shri Chidanandanato Hamiti Santatam Hridini Bhajashi Natadi Guru Guha Jayati. Watch him more than me. And them. Nana prapancha vichitra karona. Nana prapancha vichitra karona. Marupa pancha bhuta karona. Prapancha Chitra Karona Marupa Panchabhuta Karo Ajnana Dvanta Prachanda Bhaskaro Ajnana Dvanta Prachanda Bhaskaro Jnana Pradayako Maheshwaro Prachanda Bhaskaro Nana Pradayako Maheshwaro Dinamano Dupadyavaro Dinamano Dupadyavaro Dilyogadi Sakala Dekadaro Dinamano Dupadyavaro Dilyogadi Sakala Dekadaro Manasana Nagara Chaduradaro Madhuruvaro Mangalam Karoturi. Maya Maya Vishwadishta. I want to stop here. Now in the Anupallavi, he played exactly the form. Actually no, he started the Pallavi with exact form. Both of them just play the Pallavi form with me. Shri Natadi Guru Guha Jayati, which means the whole form is important for him. It's not the Tala. Actually Tala is irrelevant. It's every part. Shri Natadi Guru Guha Jayati Jayati Shri Chidanandanato miti santatam hridini bhajashi. Okay? Watch what they did in the Anupallavi. When I started, what he did is they picked up the laya mode of the Anupallavi and played what is known as Sarvalagu. Na prapancha vichitra karo nama rupa pancha bhuta karo jnana dvanta prachanda bhaskaro jnana pradayako. Now back to form. Dina mano dukta divyataro divyogadi sakala degadaro. Dina mano dukta divyataro divyogadi sakala degadaro. Manasana dagara chaturaro madguruvaro mangalam karotu shri nata di guru. Now this is relief. Now watch what they do in the charana. What adevashini vashidana. Maya maya vishwadishtano matmaka. What is this? Matanush. This is not Sarvalugulaya. This is not exact form. Maya maya vishwadishtano matmaka kadi matanushhtano. He went back now. What they played there is a different kind of layering. So, Maya Maya Vishwa Dim Tadim Dim Tadim Tadim Dim Tadim Dim Tadim Tadim Dim Tadim Dim Tadim Tadim Dim. Are they developing? Either just the laya form, nor are they playing the compositional form. What they are doing is just layering another rhythmic possibility on top of what is being played. This again gives you a different oral sensibility. So we say either you can play the actual form or you can play over the form. Some people play, for example, when he played the previous, where he actually played the form. When the form is very tight, no? In Madhyama Kala especially. Maya Malava di Desha Bhagi Pati Pujita Badaga Pradesha Maya Malava Mahi Pati Pujita Badaga Pradesha Madhavadya Marabrinda Prakasha Maheshasya Mahatopadesha Shri. Now there they will play the form because it just holds it. So, but if I'm singing in different parts, especially in the charana of a composition, you will find what is known as, we call Yedir Nada. If the flow is this way, it gives you a feeling, gives you a sensibility that the flow is coming from the other side when they play. So when they play dim, dim, ta dim, dim, ta dim, ta dim, dim, ta dim, I'm singing Maya, Maya, Vishwam, dim, ta dim. It almost seems it's coming from the opposite end. So it's a sensibility, feeling of an opposite coming. But they are actually not coming from the opposite. But because they're taking it off midpoint, that dim, ta dim, dim, ta dim, that's the catch. Dim, ta dim, ta ka dim, ta dim, dim. So all this is happening during a composition, not only during the solo. Which is why the way you hear the mridangam or the ghatam or the ganjira playing for the Carnatic gives you a different feeling. Because all this is already happening. This layering is very clearly happening. That is also because the perception of composition and form is very different. Which is why not only should they know the composition, they should know every... And because large compositions are there, this is a kind of a smaller composition. Take a larger composition. a very experienced mridangist must know every movement of that larger composition, every point. Sometimes it could be one syllable coming at the last end of the fourth line, the charanam, which needs to be stressed. So sometimes you'll see a mridangist playing for that point, starting from the charanam beginning. From the beginning, that point will constantly be coming as an opposite. The listener will not realize that it's all being gone to what you could call an idea of sum again, by the way. That's almost a sum at that point, because that's a point of hold. And it'll build, but it'll seem like it doesn't cross rhythm. It'll constantly seem like it cross rhythm. So this aesthetic difference changes the way we listen to what a mridangam or a ghatam does. Now, if I take a bigger composition, we'll talk about some Manodharma. Yes.
It was being sung to the understanding of that phrase, Ajnana Dvanta Prachanda. There's so much silence there, and the silence was so magical. So it's beyond just the laya and the, it's the understanding of that line itself.
But isn't that what laya is?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
because my point is that I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'd like to just say, when I say it's with the laya, laya itself is about the silence and the pause.
Yes.
So the idea of the laya is only when there is a. What is laya? Laya is very simple. It's just an idea of time, event and pause. A combination event and pause is laya. It's time. So the event is the beat or any accent, and between the two accents is the pause. Now, Ajnana Dhvanta, there are two ways you could have done it, by the way. The pause you may have liked. It's also possible in another concert he plays the Ajnana. Don't be fooled by him. Okay? Because it's also possible sometimes he will wait for that Ajnana and just open at Ajnana. Correct? Ajnanama Ajnanatla Vashvi.
So what you're
saying... I'm just saying that it's also got to... Why it was highlighted, by the way, to you, was also what he did before. Now, what he was doing before then gave that pause that highlight. Now, if he played with a lot of pause till then he would have definitely played the Ajnana. So I'm just saying there are these things, and when a person gets into the composition, whoever it is, then all this has to work, which means that is why I'm saying they have to be in cahoots, so to say, with every movement in a composition. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's going to get lost somewhere.
One last question, more question.
Yeah.
My name is Samarth. So the way, especially when he was playing the actual compositional form with you, does he interpret it differently every time he plays it, or does it every mridangam player interpret it differently? So
Nikirtana apdiye form lo vasikadu madhyama kalta vachalla. When you play that portion, is every time when you play that portion, do you play it exactly the same way?
And the first portion, the first pallavi, of course, I'll play like that. Not always. In the charanam, sometimes that male kalam, maya mala.
Urdu form odu vasikiriya? Okay. Maya malava gauladi desha mahi prati pujita padaga pradesha maya malava gauladi mahi prati pujita padaga pradesha madhavadhya marabinda prakasha maheshasya mahatopadesha shri maya malava gauladi desha mahi prati pujita padaga pradesha. I'll sing for him, okay? Watch. Maya adivashira Maya malava gauladi desha mahi prati pujita padaga pradesha madhavadhya marabinda prakasha maheshasya mahatopadesha shri. This is also possible. So here he has actually picked a syllabic sound which is just offbeat and keeps hitting that syllabic sound. So that can also be done. So, but the point is that this is always happening.
If he sings the Neraval in this line, it will be totally different.
I was going to come to Neraval also.
The same line, it will be totally different.
But even when he's playing, even if you had to hear, what you did was you actually changed the form.
Yeah,
from
he
the
did.
actual form. But if you were playing the actual form in a different concert, would your interpretation be different? The syllables would be different every time.
Little bit it will change. Yeah, little bit. Not 100% fixed. No.
Yeah, okay, that's what.
Never.
Okay.
It will change.
That's what.
Definitely.
So every mridangam player would have a different interpretation.
Everybody interprets differently for the skriti itself.
Okay.
It's totally different. Everybody interprets in a different way.
So the aesthetic experience of me singing this composition today with Arun and Guru will be entirely different from singing this composition with two other people, because every The reason being, not just their general aesthetic sensibility, but because they enter every part of the composition. They, at no point of the composition, actually, they're just providing us a flow, so to speak. Because they are dividing it along with
It
the
is not
composition.
just keeping time. I think they used to call just keeping time.
Yes.
In fact, keeping time is not their job at all.
Yes,
No, it's
so
not our
because
job.
this question
No.
was especially because you said that they have
Keeping
to know
time
the
is also our
composition.
job.
Correct.
Hey, my
Yeah.
job too.
Everybody's job.
Even
If
the
you're having
audience.
100 jobs, you're having this one of the job is keeping time. 99 other jobs are there.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I was just, that was a question because if he has to know the composition, every mridangam player has to learn the composition and
Very
to understand
important.
it, internalize
So
it.
that's the difficulty because there are so many compositions. But there are, I think there are, when you know enough compositions, then you know how to work with a new composition. You kind of know how it's going to move. There are still surprises. There are still points where they will be mismatched. It's happened so many times. But that is why it's very important actually for the person not only know music per se. I mean, you can say mridangist knows music. That's not enough. You will actually know composition. Some of the greatest mridangists could sing kirtanas. Full kirtanas. I've had the pleasure of listening to them sing incredibly. They know full kirtanas. So they know, and interestingly, kirtanas have different pathantaras. Now, the same kirtana may have two sangatis in my patantara, which is not there in somebody else's patantara. So there's a problem for everybody. Now, she, for example, may know a composition. I know the same composition. But her version of it, there may be different from my version of it. Now, this Srinatha di Guru Jayati, I can tell you there are other versions of it. Okay? Where it doesn't follow many changes to it. Now, she may know that. Now, one is she can't play that while she's playing along with us, obviously. But the other issue is also that then interpretations also change. So sometimes the mridangist needs to know more than one patantara also. If T.M. Krishna is singing this kirtana, he knows, okay, this sangati is going to come. He usually sings it after the Anupallavi. If somebody else is singing, he knows, okay, this is a different patantara. In this school, they will not sing. So which means that their work within also will change.
He himself will change the Padantara in
No,
every
that's-
concert. That's there.
You're not supposed to say those things, but go ahead.
Interestingly, even in Hindustani music, when the tabla, even though the tabla player is not playing the composition like you are, if they know the compositions, it makes such a big
I mean,
difference.
that's I
as
think a
singer.
given. That is a kind of a given, I think. That's a given.
Can I ask one thing? You talked about patantara difference. Are you saying, suppose there is a composition and that same composition has some kind of notation?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Go
I
ahead.
mean, you have a composition which
Okay.
is notated.
So notation
And-
is secondary to us.
Yeah, but that's there in Hindustani
Yeah,
also.
so-
No, but what I'm saying is, you're saying there are 2-3 versions of the same bandish,
Yes, same composition, yes.
but are they composed by the same person?
Absolutely same person. So, Tyagaraja Kirtana, let's take Tyagaraja Kirtana.
Uh-huh.
Can have two different pathantaras of Tyagaraja Kirtana. Now, basic framework may be same.
Yeah,
fundamental.
so basic
No,
framework doesn't change.
I'll
Yeah.
come to possibility of basic framework also not being the same. That is also there. We have not left any of those things loose. We've explored all the possibilities in creating more confusion. So it is the basic framework will be the same, but the basic framework is only doesn't actually after a point doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the sangatis that are built sometimes are totally different. Totally different. The whole sonic experience of the composition is entirely different sometimes between two pathantaras. So it will change many things in the way I render it and also they accompany it. There are compositions which are sung in two ragas. In one patantara is raga X, another patantara is raga Y.
Yeah.
The complication happens in Carnatic is because the composition becomes so central to, and being the length and the breadth of the composition, it becomes more complicated because the experience then becomes completely different. There are kirtanams sung in two ragas. That also exists. They are less, I agree, they are less. But the basic skeleton being the same, but the sangatis being entirely different, there are many. Sometimes the little twist also. Could be a small twist, but that also is there. So all these possibilities mainly because of the oral tradition. And because of oral tradition, there are these differences that have happened, and I think that's part. I mean, I celebrate it more than anything else. I don't think that I don't like to stick and say that this is thing. But sometimes there have been aberrations also, which are problematic. Sometimes ragas have been cleansed, have been cleaned up because we think we are being intellectual in some fashion. You know, modern intellectuality sometimes creates a problem. So those kind of problems are there, especially, for example, in Dikshita's compositions, this problem is seriously there because the understanding of the Dikshitar school of ragas is not so much, it's only in the recent past that there's a lot of discussion about it. We have made almost all the ragas that Dikshitars handled into a very Tyagaraja framework because Tyagaraja's compositions were sung much more. His ragas, his interpretation was sung much more. So the tendency to homogenize is something we all have as human beings. So we've kind of homogenized it. Now, I've been one of the people who have been fighting for saying there are two Sahanas. There are two Kannadas, entirely different. So
Yeah.
this is what we've been kind of battling and saying we did not have one basic identity. So, but that's a larger conversation, more complicated historically. But in general, it can be very different. There can be two Patantaras very different.
And Sangatis can be
Very different.
And these Sangatis are pre-composed
So, Sangati is,
or Chittaswaram is pre-composed.
now, Sangati is also more or less pre-composed. The Sangati and Nerval are not at all similar.
Yeah, that I know.
Sangati is pre-composed. Depending on who you learned from, you learn a set of Sangatis. Now, did Tyagaraja compose these Sangatis? This has always been a question. Interestingly, in I've seen old notations which are about 1860s. Tyagaraja died in 1847. 1870s, 1880s, with some compositions, which are large compositions. Pallavi has 13 Sangatis. 13. First line has 13, second line has 9. You don't even finish the Pallavi of the first 15 minutes. Okay? Now, interestingly, when I looked at those notations, most of the Sangatis were almost exactly how it is rendered today. Which was fascinating for me because I would also believe and say that Tyagaraja probably gave the framework and everybody added, which is something that we generally believe. Interestingly, it's not always true. Ye Papa Mujhe Sitira, Mari Mari Ninne. Many of the Sangatis are there in 1870s. Now, so I do think that Tyagaraja or these composers themselves had a lot of input to it. Of course, musicians have added something. Now, Aurangasai, a very famous composition. The Sangatis that you hear today, the famous version of Aurangasai, is Shemmagudi Srinivasayar's setup. There's a famous joke, I don't know how far it's true. There was a musician called Musiri Subramaniar, kind of senior to Shemmagudi, who used to sing Aurangasai, and his Sangatis were different. So apparently when Shemmagudi had set it up, he went and asked Musiri, how is it? He said, Yedo Sumara irukku. Not bad, it's kind of okay, is what he said. So I'm just saying that musicians have also contributed to adding Sangatis. I think we all have at some level. We have all added little things here and there. That also happens. But it's also true that the composers themselves have had a great insight into art objects. So when they've created one of these bigger compositions, it's the form itself will tell you. You know, composition form itself will kind of tell you. And in that form, you can see they themselves have pushed it. They themselves have added Sangatis. The build-up is there. Dikshitar, intrinsically in his compositional form, does not use so much Sangatis. So you could say Tyagaraja built his form like this. Dikshitar built his form like this. So what was Sangatis was actually flowing parallelly for Dikshitar. For Tyagaraja, he was building on every line like this. There's this constructional difference between the two. That's what I would say. Yes.
Can you speak a little bit about how the ghatam fits into the layers?
I was going to come to this. First, if you notice in the Pallavi that he did not first join in. He joined in after the mridangam started. This is again a tradition of allowing the mridangam artist to set the frame and then come into that frame. Then during the composition, I'll take another composition and just show you how Arun will disappear at a point and allow the ghatam to kind of enter. Shri Subram Manyaya Namaste Shri Subram Manyaya Namaste Namaste Shri Namaste Shri Subhram Manyaya Namaste Namaste Shri Subhram Manyaya. In Dikshitar, I can definitely say that many Sangatis were added later. They were not from the composer. Namaste Shri Subhram Manyaya Namaste Namaste Manasija Koti Koti Lavanyaya Dina Sharanyaya Shri Subhram Manyaya Namaste Manasija Koti Koti Lavanyaya Dina Sharanyaya Shri Subhram Manyaya Namaste Manasija Koti Koti Lavanyaya Dina Sharanyaya Shri Subhram Manyaya Namaste Suradi Sauma Stajana Suradi Sauma Stajana Ujita Sharana sakala Vasavadi sakala deva vanditayam varenyaya Vasavadi sakala devam vanditayam varenyaya dasajana ishta Subham Namaste Manasi Koti Koti Lavanyaya Dina Sharanaya Shri Subham Taraka Simha Mukashura Padmasura Samnetre Taraka Simha Padmasura Samnetre Tapatraya Haranani if you watched how both of them play, there are moments where the mridangam leaves it and allows the ghatam or the ganjira to come in. And there is this give and take that needs to be there. Traditionally, the mridangam is the dominant percussion instrument, and the ghatam or the ganjira follows the lead. And the lead, again, like everything, is in everything. It's in the laya, it is in the form. In fact, even in the, for example, idavru charanam paadren, idavru solloda armi charanatha, nee adilindi eduthu vaasi. So he will start playing with a certain form, and just watch how he will give that form to him, and he will use that form. So he will not start something independent, is what I'm trying to say. Just started Nerval. This line was too tempting, sorry. I just started Nerval, and we'll just do a few exchanges, stop some talking. Jana pujitaya charanaya bhusuradi samasta jana Usually we take one line and we keep building. Sometimes I like to pick two different lines, use one line at the region where the line is, and use the other line at the region where it is. So I'm doing these shift lines here. Sakalam Deva Vanditaya Vasavadi Vasavadi Sakala Devam Vanditaya It's very tempting to just sing and not talk. So, so when you sing Nerval like this for a composition, then the roles all automatically have to kind of merge, blend. Where the ghatam comes in, where the mridangam comes in. But when I start changing the texture of the Nerval, their roles will change. The violin also does a very important thing is which octave do they play in? Sometimes we don't notice that. So they have to keep shifting octaves. So depending on when they are following, when they are playing. So that also adds to how you will actually receive what is being heard. Also, sense of laya is in when Alapana style Neraval, which you can call this, they are actually playing samakala, which is 2 beats per beat. 2 ta dim, with gaps of course. Dim, dim, ta 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 dim, dim ta dim, dim ta 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 dim, dim ta dim. Now this is very important. Either they can play this, or they can play one slower. But if they play ta din din na din din na, then it completely will destroy this kind of Neraval. Because it will be in contraindicative of the mode of flow. So now once we get a little more robust in what we sing, they will change. Vasavadi sakala devam vandita So, if you noticed that every time you change the kind of Neraval that you sing, then they are automatically shifting because they know the form of the line, they know where I'm going to move. In fact, they know the melody. They know the flow. They know and it's also the raga flow. They know that if I'm singing Gandhara in Kamboji, how the raga is going to move around Gandhara, they know. So all this has to be there as part of their accompaniment, which is what I meant by saying they are within every moment of that is happening. It has to be that way. And that's why it gives that, there is certain tightness that this gives to the way it is rendered.